Welcome to Kingdomize, the podcast, where we discuss how to see our lives and our world through a kingdom lens, how to infuse kingdom culture into our families, our workplaces, and our cities, as we all participate in the dream of Jesus to see his kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. So welcome back to Kingdomize, the podcast. We are going to have a great day together. So really thankful for the feedback we're getting from you. So much that you're hearing and as you're sharing. So even before we start in faith, you should do that. Just go ahead and say, I got to share this with somebody. And I know at the end you'll want to, because our guest today, Martin Powell, has an extraordinary story. He's extraordinary. His story is amazing. This will be fantastic. And as always, I'm here with my good friend, Ian Green. Ian, how are you?
I am exceptionally well. Thank you very much, Brian.
You are exceptionally well. It's true. And so, as I said, we are in our Solutionaries series. We're finding people all over the planet that are bringing heaven to earth. They believe Jesus was serious when he said he wants his kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. And so they're not just revolutionary. They're not just having answers that work for them. They're not just thinking about stuff. They're actually doing stuff. They're bringing the kingdom to earth. I really am so excited to have our friend Martin with us today. Martin, you are a lover of God's word. You're a musician, a minister, an author, a businessman, and not just a musician. You're an international award-winning classical soloist. Like, how many times do we get that, Ian? Come on.
Oh, I'm telling you, it's a rare commodity that we have today.
And speaking of commodities, that's funny. That was a good segue. Martin worked in London for over 20 years as a pastor and businessman, and then God called him to the United States. He now lives in Fort Mill, South Carolina, and he is there. And he started, speaking of commodities, he started Kingdom Talents, Gold and Silver Investments, and he also hosted his own TV show called Kingdom Matters. Wow, we only have a few minutes here, like a 45, 50 minutes. Like, we could talk about any of those things for that long. But Martin, we're glad you're here. Thanks for taking the time. Our people that are listening, they're going to love hearing what you have to say. So, Martin, thanks for being with us today. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. Raring to go, refreshed, and spending time in God's presence.
That's so good. And for those listening, this is how Martin talks all the time. Most Christians know Romans 8:28. Martin lives it. Like, he just believes all things work together for good. And so he is a man of the word. And I noticed that as we talk, you're always wanting to go there first. So Martin, we want to hear your story, a bit of your story. You can go back as far as you want. You can go back to Zygote stage if you want. If you remember that, go ahead. But tell us a bit of your upbringing. Tell us about your award-winning soloist clarinetting. Tell us how. I really want to hit the part of you coming to the States and what God specifically said about that. That's really interesting. So tell us a bit about who Martin Powell is.
Well, I was born into an Irish Catholic family. And so I was going to church every week. And I first heard God talk to me when I was 4 years old. And I know exactly I was 4 because they wouldn't let me go to catechisms. And I said, Lord, I said, that's not fair. Because you had to be 5. And I said, Lord, I know the stories. I know what it says. And he said to me, Martin, you will be a preacher. So I knew at 4 years old I'd be a preacher. But like many young Catholics, I sort of stopped going to church in my teenage years. And I had a different love, and that was music, and specifically the clarinet. And if I had to describe myself in any way, I'm actually a zealot. I cannot do things half-heartedly. I have to do it absolutely as well as I can. So on the clarinet, I started playing that when I was about 11, and I would practice more than everybody else. I just figured if I practiced twice as much, I'd be better. And so this went on, and I used to practice until I bled. And I would practice, even when I was at school, I'd be there an hour earlier. I'd practice for my break. I'd practice for my lunchtime.
Okay.
And when I got home,
I'm sorry.
I'm
a visual person, and you just messed my life up. You practiced the clarinet until you bled. So where are you bleeding? Is your tongue really?
Yeah, in your lip, because the teeth the teeth would cut into the lips after a while.
Wow. Okay. So for the listeners, I'm sorry, I'm a visual person. Many of our, people are visual. So Ian, I saw you react when he said it too. So it's not just me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I was just like, I want to know, like, what does that mean in hours per day that you were put into the clarinet?
Well, certainly when I was at the Royal Academy of Music, I was doing 6 to 12 hours a day. And
Wow.
when I was a young man, when I started, it would be up to about 3 hours, 4 hours, and then it just went up higher and higher.
So when did you go to the Royal Academy of Music? Like, when did that fit in? Like after
It was
school, after high school?
Yeah, it was around 1980.
Okay.
I'd won tons of competitions up in Nottingham, where I used to live. I mean, everything I did, the Lord blessed. I remember playing at festivals, and when I was 13, and they said, best clarinetist under 13, Martin Powell. Best woodwind player, Martin Powell. Best soloist, Martin Powell. Best for the whole festival, concert bands, choirs, orchestras, Martin Powell. So I was, my early life, I had silver cups all over my piano. And when I went to the academy, just Lord blessed me again there. I was highly commended in my first years, which you shouldn't do. Not until your third or fourth years would you should be winning prizes. And I went on to win all the prizes at the academy. Best wind player in the academy was the Solomon Prize. Best clarinetist, the Hawkes Prize, and lots and lots of prizes. So I ended up with an agent. And you see, this had never happened in history. So it wasn't I was, my generation. It was history. And I went on to, had an agent when I was at the academy. I think I was probably only one of two people in the academy that had agents. And people don't actually understand sometimes how hard it is even to get into the academy. We're talking about much harder than Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, Yale, much harder. To get into the academy on the clarinet, they take each year about 5 to 6 players. And after 5 or 6 players, they will audition in New York, Chicago, Beijing, sometimes in South Africa, sometimes in Tokyo. We're talking about they're looking through the whole world, and they're only going to take 5 or 6 players. So that's just to get in, and then you get in. You've got to do. I was just everything was going for me. Then the Lord appeared to me. He appeared to me in a dream. I think Solomon had the Lord appeared to him twice in a dream. And I've had the Lord twice in dreams, probably more outside. But when I was at the academy, he appeared to me in a dream. And this is what he said to me. He said, Martin, this is your last chance.
Wow.
You have to decide right now whether to work for me or work for my enemy.
Wow.
And when I see these, revelations of hell and things like that, and I realize how close I got to hell. But give me a chill just thinking about it. I am just so pleased that Jesus was gracious enough to give me an extra chance, to give me my last chance.
So Martin, you said God said this is your last chance. Like, had you been going back and forth with God, struggling internally? God said this, no, I'm going to do this. Like, it was that, or was it just like shows up at 4 and then shows up at 25 and like last chance, let's do it. Like, give a little context to that.
Well, I think it must be. Well, first of all, I shortened what he said. When he was speaking to me, he said, Martin, this is your last chance. You have had many opportunities to work for me and have refused me. What are you going to do? Are you going to work for me or my enemy? So, and when I pondered that, obviously I had faith, which was given to me through the Catholic Church. I had faith in God. I had faith in his voice. And in fact, when I heard this, I just led somebody to the Lord. Couple of weeks previous to me getting saved, because I just told him it was true. Unusual situation of bringing someone to the Lord before you're saved, and so that was quite. And I think when I was at college, at the academy, I did go to church a few times or felt drawn back. And also, I was extremely dissatisfied with my life because, and this is really strange, I was incredibly successful, and yet there's something missing. Very much in relationships as well. When you're a musician and you're successful, relationships are very easy. So you are having girlfriends and then partying and ripping them apart, and the feeling of if a girlfriend got in the way of practicing, she wouldn't last. And then I was thinking about my mum and dad, because I know that God had brought my mum and dad together. My mum had given me the stories of how it happened, and so I remember thinking, I wish I could start again. I wish I could. I've never been with a woman or whatever. And yet, you know, I wish I could be born again. And I didn't know what I was wanting.
Wow. Wow.
So what happened after that? So now you've got this connection with Jesus. He's like, this is the last chance. Sounds like you said yes. Sounded like he was right.
Yeah. I said yes. I think it was possibly a couple of days later. An American ministry called Maranatha, they came to the Royal Academy of Music to preach to the students. And it got to the point where they said, who would like to give their lives to the Lord? And I put my hand up. It just went straight up. And then they took hold of me and took me through the prayers and discipled me.
Wow.
That was good.
So keep moving forward in the music career, and then take us to the point where now maybe you're not doing music anymore. You talked about pastoring and business. Like, take us into that transition.
Oh yeah, tell us how you got the shop.
Well, what happened was that this is the hardest thing that's ever happened to me in my life. By far, it's not even close. A lady was giving me a prophecy, and it was pretty innocuous. But I was hearing something very different. It's almost like she was saying the wall is green, and I was hearing, well, the garden's pink. You know, it wasn't exactly relating. And she was talking, and what I heard was, Martin, I used to lay the clarinet down. And I could not understand that. I could not comprehend that. And then a few days later, a friend of mine came and he was praying for me, and he said, Martin, and this is in plain English, the Lord is saying he wants you to lay the clarinet down. And I can only say that I immediately wanted to vomit. My body could not cope with the information. You know, it meant more to me than relationships, it meant more to me than there was a suggestion that I had to have an operation on my teeth. And there's a slim possibility I wouldn't be able to play. And afterwards, so they wanted to insure me for about £2 million through the operation. And I said, well, there's no point, because if I can't play, I'm looking for the closest tall building.
Wow.
I mean, it meant more than anything.
Yeah. Wow.
So my body could not cope with this, and I wanted to be sick. And so I thought about it for a week. And do you know what I said to the Lord? No. You see, I couldn't find it in me to do that. I couldn't find the strength. And so I said, Lord, I said, no, but I am willing for you to change my heart so that I'm able to.
Wow. That's good. That's really good.
Well, I knew I couldn't do it properly.
Yeah,
I couldn't pretend. I mean, I think, you know, when Abraham was going to slay Isaac, he couldn't have raised his hand looking around, okay, you're going to stop me. He must have had the intent to follow through. And I didn't have that. But I did fall in love with something else. I'd started reading the Bible, and I think this was a Friday, and on a Sunday, I was reading my Bible, and it suddenly occurred to me I'd forgotten to practice, and that is impossible. I don't think I'd ever forgotten to practice.
Okay.
And there was a big switch in my life in that I put the love I had for, I guess, the clarinet into the Bible. And I loved the Bible so much, and I was ferocious reading it. I was very indignant I'd been lied to. That, number one, the Catholic Church had lied to me, that the scientists had lied to me, that society had lied to me, and I wanted to know what the truth was.
Yeah.
I am the way, the truth, and the life.
Yeah.
this is the truth. Nobody speaks like him. He's got the words of eternal life. And so I went through reading the Bible very, so I mean, so much. I went through a period of time once where I was reading the Bible every week, once completely a week, going through different translations. I remember going through Webster's Bible, King James Revised, and the NIV. I mean, most of the English translation, American Standard, New American Standard. And the Darby Bible, Amplified Bible. So I must say the Amplified Bible did take me 12 days or 14 days.
Well, because it's longer
not
and louder.
7.
It's longer and louder, right?
Oh,
More words and it's
it's
amplified. So it's
too chewy. And in fact, I don't like the idea that you can put every definition of a word and choose what you want.
it's the choose your own adventure Bible.
Yeah. And then, so I'm 63 now. I've read the Bible, I don't know, 130 times at least. I write them down. At the moment, I'm in a program where I'll read it. At the moment, I just finished Webster's Bible on the 14th. So that was 14 days. And then I'll spend the rest of this month before I start again on the first of the month. So I read the Bible every month. And I start on the first and I complete it because I know that's where the truth is. And I want to know the truth. But I think it's so much more than that. Man should not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. And I just got this thing. It doesn't matter how boring the book is, whether I'm trawling through Leviticus or some of Numbers and sort of, I just feel it's like when you're eating a potato, you're not sitting thinking, what am I learning from this? What am I learning from that? Because the life is just coming into you. And that life, it's almost like you're reprogramming in your DNA. And because I will be satisfied when I awake in his image, that's when I'll be satisfied.
Yeah.
And so
Beautiful.
it's the eating of the body and drinking of the blood, to imbibing everything about him. So, for many years, I get up between 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock. That's how I start my day. And I will just read. I've done it so often now, and I can read a lot faster as well. I look up the Hebrew and the Greek on most of the words so I can get deeper, so I can understand it. And I also do something this is really wacky. You'll have to, if you're listening to this, you just have to excuse me. It did occur to me at one point that, you see, because in my classical music, sometimes I'd have to memorize a concerto. Memorizing a concerto, you're going to play for 20, 30 minutes, and you've got to get every single note perfect, shaped, colored, weighted. Can you imagine talking for 20, 30 minutes? You can't say a word wrong. You have to memorize it. So it's a lot of work, and you can produce information from inside you. You're taking it and then you're playing it. And so a lot of the time you would read, you'll see it in an orchestra and they've got their music stands and they read the music, then they play it. Now, if you internalize it and then play it, it's a different step.
Yeah.
And so, I was actually thinking, I want to not just read it, I want to hear it. So not necessarily a audio, although I have listened to audio when I'm in the car, the Bible. But what I did was I would imagine that I was in heaven, that I was in a university auditorium, and I would look at the speaker and I would imagine the speaker saying the words, and I would listen to his tone at the same time as reading it. And I would do this, and I'd also, to the right, in my mind, put a video screen up where I would watch what I was reading and listening to. And I would do this. And this is the most incredible thing. I was doing it once, and I realized that the person who was speaking was the actual writer of the books. So I started hearing Isaiah. I started hearing Ezekiel talking, and Daniel, and Paul. And they would get up on that stage and I would listen to them. And this is really strange because I had not envisaged that when I started doing it. I just wanted to get a different way of inputting the information. But yeah, so I'm a bit crazy on the Bible.
Well, I'm not.
This is quite
I'm not sure what people are thinking as they're listening, but I love that. I love that you love the Word of God so much. I love that you love God so much. You love His Word, and it's evident every time I speak with you. So it's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I once had this strange occurrence where I was thinking about working with a professional intercessor. You know, somebody, you know, for the listeners who gets paid to pray for your business. And I didn't know who he was. And he introduced himself to me. His name was Rob Robinson. And I thought, well, I don't know this man. I need to get a reference. So I thought, who can I get a reference of? And I was thinking about who would do it. And then I thought, well, I don't know anybody to get reference from, so I'll ask Father. So I said, Father, would you give me a reference on Rob Robinson? So this was during the week, and on the Sunday, he comes running up to me and he said, you asked God for a reference. And I said, yes, I did.
And
Doing
did he
my
get a
due
good one?
diligence.
Did he get a good one?
Hmm?
Did he get a good reference?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, the thing was that his understanding gave me the information I needed, because he said to me, he said, "You want to hear what God said about you, Martin?" And he said, not just what he said, but the way he said it. And I said, "Well, what did he say?" He said, "Martin, he loves my word."
Wow.
And so I knew this guy could hear God,
Yeah.
because he didn't know what I did.
Well,
Fantastic. That's absolutely amazing. Amazing.
yeah. Well, Martin,
Amazing.
I was thinking as you were talking about, usually Christians either go towards the Word or go towards like the written Word or the Word, the Rhema, the Holy Spirit. I just love how you love both of them. I love how you love the written Word of God, and like it's really that marriage of the Word and the Spirit that is so evident in your life, which is wonderful.
Well, I wrote a book called Listening to the Voice, because it is the Rima and the Logos. You know, we want both.
Yeah.
You know, we want to be able to. It's got to be alive, because if it's not alive, it's just words on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of theologians who've read the Bible a lot, but we need the life.
Ian, you were asking about a story. What were you looking for? We were trying to get Martin into the. What were you thinking?
So, Martin, when you were clarinet, put it down, eventually you agreed, and then God led you to go into an area in London and to secure a music shop. Like, that's such a good story. Our friends listen to this; they need to hear that story.
Well, this is an interesting thing, because I never thought I'd have to work a day in my life. You know, it had never occurred to me that I would do anything apart from just playing music. And so, being married, you needed to be able to provide food and stuff. Anyway, one day I was walking along the road, and the Lord said to me, he said, Martin, I'm going to give you a music shop. And I said, okay, got no money. How are you going to do that? And I think this is one of the secrets to life. It's a secret to how the Lord multiplied the bread and the fish. And this is what happened. I said, how are you going to do it? And he said, do everything you can do, and I will do the rest. So, you can get 5 loaves and a couple of fishes. I thought about what I could do, and I thought, well, I can ring up the realtors and say I'm going to open a music shop, get the information, and I can ring up the banks and say, which one's going to give me the best deal. So I did that. I called the banks. I'm going to open a music shop. Called the realtors. I'm going to open a music shop. And I found the one that I thought it was going to be. The gentleman was selling the lease and not the freehold. I said, Lord, what should I do? And he said, put an offer on the lease. So I said to the gentleman, can you tell me who owns the freehold? And he says, no, you put an offer on my lease. And so I prayed about it. So what should I offer? So I put an offer in, and he said, okay, accept it. He gave me the telephone number of the freeholder. The freeholder I've only spoken to once in my life. I remember his name. I wonder how I remember it. It was Mr. Lyon. Anyway, I asked the Lord what to do. He said, call and put an offer on the freehold. I've got no money. So I call this man up. I'm buying the lease on this property. I would also like to buy your freehold. And he said, okay. He said, I was already in negotiations to sell it. Here's the amount I want. Here's the number of my lawyer. Give him a call and he'll sort it out. So I'm sitting down thinking, I've had an offer accepted for a lease and a freehold and I got no money. So I thought, well, let me ring up the building societies, and it would all fall down because they'd ask me, what did you earn last year? And, I had nothing. Well, when I say I had nothing, I'm exaggerating. I had minus money. And then I remember one of the bank managers who'd said, why don't you have a business development loan? So I called him up, said, I'll have a business development loan. And he says, come in. He says, I want you to bring in a business plan. I want you to bring in your spreadsheets, your past accounts, and your bank statements. I said, well, I've got no business plan. I've got no spreadsheets. I've got no accounts, but I have got bank statements. He said, okay, bring them in. So I had a meeting with this man. I don't bank with him, never met him in my life. And I'm doing a lot of prayer going in. And then I talked to him about what I want to do, set up a musical instrument shop. He said, okay. And he's going through it. And he says, right, let me see your bank statements. Pass them over. He's looking at them. I thought, so that's fine, he says. What was he looking at? And so he agrees to lend me, I think there's going to be around 97% of the value of the building.
My gosh.
And he said, and this is a 3-story building in London. It's not a small thing. And he says to his assistant, can you bring a loan form out for Mr. Powell? Brings the loan form out, starts doing his calculations, and he works it out, and the monthly payment was going to be, I think it was 30 times what I was earning at that time. So I was sitting there thinking, Lord, I've got a shortfall. I studied.
I know I'm a musician, but I can do that math.
Yeah, musicians tend to be good in maths or English. So I was thinking, how am I going to do this? And I'm praying away, and I say to the bank manager, okay, right, I'm going to need a business overdraft. And he says, okay, how much do you want? So at the time, I said £20,000, which was around $40,000 at the time. And he said, okay, so I don't know. I worked out what a couple of payments was going to be, and so he pulls his assistant and says, "Right now, don't forget I don't bank with them." He says, "Open a bank account for Martin Powell, and put on it a £20,000 overdraft." This was in 1987, so
Wow.
it was worth a little bit more at the time. So then I bought the building, bought the lease, bought the freehold, and then I immediately remortgaged it and paid the bank back within 2 months.
Wow.
And that's how I started in business.
Ian,
I borrowed his money. I borrowed his money to buy the business, and I borrowed his money to pay his money back with.
that's fantastic. Ian, I think Kingdomize needs Mr. Lyon's phone number.
That wasn't the name of that was the name of the freeholder, not the bank manager. Yeah. I can't remember the bank manager's name.
So, Martin, I don't want to rush you, man, but I don't want to run out of time because I want to get you into the States. People need to hear what you're doing now and the story of why you're doing that. So can we fast forward? We'll have you back another time. I mean, in our discussions, you've got so many stories like you're telling, which are amazing of how God has led you. And it's really, really wonderful. But if we could fast forward and let's get you into South Carolina and why you went there, and then tell what God said to you about what you're doing now. Fascinating.
Okay, well, in terms of in London, I built the business from 1 shop to 4 shops in the end. And then every year the Lord said to me, Martin, you're going to America. Martin, you're going to America. Martin, you're going to America. Every single year. And then towards the end, he changed it a little bit. And he said, Martin, you are an American. Martin, you are an American. So I'm actually an American in disguise. I became a citizen in 2017.
Okay.
So I'm dual citizen. Profit came to the church, because I was a pastor for 20 years, and said, I think the Lord wants you to look up Morning Star. So that was a church in Fort Mill, South Carolina, where I still live. And I flew over for a conference. They had conferences all the time, worship conferences and different things. And when I went over, the Lord told me to move over. And so, right, okay. So we, disposed of the businesses in London, sold our homes. It took us 3 years to get a green card. And when I got the green card, I booked the flight for the next week and we flew out to America with my 2 children, one of 4 years old, Sophia, and one of 8 years old, David, and my wife. We went for a new adventure in the new world. And when I came over, I didn't have any jobs to go to or anything. I had no income, no money. I just went because the Lord told me to. And so when I arrived there, we were there for about a year and a half before I realized what I was supposed to do. Because I said to the Lord almost from the first week, Lord, what should I do? And he said, I want you to make money. Well, I've been in business. I got something put aside. And the next week I'd ask him, Lord, what do you want me to do? I want you to make money. This went on for every week for nearly a year and a half. So you can imagine my savings going down like that. And then one day I said, Lord, what do you want me to do? He says, I want you to make money. I said, Lord, I know you want me to make money. And he said, no, I want you to make money. You see, the word for money in Hebrew is a word called kasef. But kasef doesn't mean what we think of as being money. The word kasef means silver. And the word in the New Testament for money is a word called argyros. And what it means is silver. So every time you're reading the word money in the Bible, you're not reading bits of paper. You're reading silver. And that makes a lot of sense because, and especially now, as we've seen, that the value is actually contained within the material and not a promise. Many currencies, the value's in the promise. I promise to pay the bearer, £1 or whatever it is. It's a measure of authority from the country. And so, obviously if it's an important country, the value of the promise is worth more. And obviously when you get hyperinflation, certain countries, the value is going down, their authority. But this is not authority, it's material. And so that's the subtle difference between money in the Bible and money in the world. So that's what I did. You told me what to do, I went and did it. I'm very good, I think, at doing what I'm told. And funny enough, because the business has been very successful. These talents have made millions of them, and they've gone all around the world, and God's, something I don't particularly want to do, but I do it because he's asked me to do it. And so, these coins, we manufactured silver bullion called talents. That was the name of my music shops. They were called Talents Music. This is quite intriguing. We chose the name for the music shop. We said, Lord, this name is too important for us to choose. What is the name of the shop? And a friend of mine heard a word from the Lord saying talents. So when I'm building this gold and silver company, I said, Lord, what's the name of it? And he said, talents, the very same name. And obviously in the Bible, we have the word talent, and it's normally a reference to a weight of gold or silver, but they were extremely more weight than a silver ounce that we do our talents at. And one day I was complaining about it because I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and I like things to be perfect. It's hard on my wife because I tell her, when I practice the clarinet, all I'm doing is I'm looking and looking and looking and looking and perfecting everything, going round looking for the mistakes or the things that can be better. So you do become a bit of a perfectionist. And it's a bit of a joke sometimes when people say to you, when you play, did you make any mistakes? I'm sure you did, but only you would know. And I would just think, I don't think they understand. The difference between an amateur musician and a professional musician is that an amateur will practice until they can play something perfectly, but a professional will practice until he can't play it not perfect.
Okay.
Wow.
And So when you play, I don't know one hand any mistakes I've ever made in my life.
Yeah. Wow.
It is, so you are a bit of a perfectionist because it's required of you, and so somebody said to me, well, a talent is worth about £140, not 1 ounce, and that bothered me. And I was sitting and in America we can't call them coins. These are silver bullion, gold bullion. You can't call them coins. The only two words you can call them are rounds or medallion. And so I thought, well, let me look up what talent is in Hebrew. And it's a word called kikar. And according to Strong's Dictionary, and I don't know if the listeners have used Strong Dictionary, but you'll find loads of different definitions on a word, every little color of what the word means. But under the word kikar, there's only one word, and it says round.
Okay.
And that's the legal denomination in America for the coins.
Yeah. Yeah.
So think it through. My music shop, 20 or 30 years before, was called Talent.
Yeah. Yeah.
For a currency we're making, really. Later on, that means what it says on the coin.
Yeah. I love that.
Anyway, it's what God's abilities are wonderful. Awesome.
Yeah. So Martin, you go ahead, Ian.
So Martin, so you're making talents. What is the driver behind that? I know the Lord told you to do it, but what is the outcome? What is the feedback? What happens to those talents? You're making them, you've distributed over 1 million. Like what does all that mean in terms of what you're doing?
Well, it's doing two things. One, it's creating wealth for myself, and then I can use that for ministries and whatever other good work Lord wants to be done. But it's also shoring up people's savings in these end times. I believe we are going to see a number of currencies crash because when you have paper money, it's only as good as the country that's giving it. And if things crash, then your money can just melt away. And in fact, it doesn't even just melt away in terrible times, it melts away in normal times. In normal times, if you think about how much your parents' houses cost against what a house would cost now, and this is a great example we use in America. In the early 1900s, you could buy a 4-bedroom house for 200 ounces of gold, and that equals $4,000. So you could buy a 4-bedroom house for $4,000. Well, now you can still buy a house for 200 ounces of gold, but that'd be close to $1 million. You can still buy the house, but 4,000 wouldn't buy you anything because it's inflation has eaten away. So when you have something, and this is the thing, is that silver and gold, there's something special about them. The silver is mine, and the gold is mine, saith the Lord. So that's in Haggai chapter 2, verse 8. There's something special about it. And so for thousands of years, it's been used as storage of wealth. When Israel came out of Egypt, what did they take? They took the gold. They were given the gold. That was their hire for 430 years of slavery. It's in the gold, it's in the silver. It'll always be precious. And when I'm talking to my clients, the thing is that this is not something new. It's not like, hey, you want to get into this new crypto. Oh, a lot of people are losing money in crypto at the moment. And at the moment, in gold and silver, it's just doubled in the last year. Absolutely. So I think what we're doing is we're helping people in the kingdom to wisely put their savings and investments in something that will not just completely melt. And so if there's a meltdown, if and when there's a meltdowns in the economies, it provides insurance and security. So that's why I guess we're doing it. And in fact, the Lord said to a friend of, well, not a friend of mine, he was an acquaintance I met. I met him on a mountain called Prayer Mountain in Raven Falls. And this is what he said to me. He said to me, Martin, and he did not know what I was doing. So we'd only just met. He said, Martin, the Lord's told me there's going to be a new economy on the earth, and it's going to be based on the talent. And I said to him, he was a minister from South Africa, and I said to him, Ernie, that's incredible. I have a business and we've started the manufacturing of them. And I think this is what we're doing. It's going to provide a financial security for a lot of people. And I guess it's a little bit like with Joseph and Pharaoh. Those who believe will take their cattle inside when the hail's coming. Well, these economic conditions are coming. So are you going to be prepared or not?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that's what I think we're doing this, and and the Lord's been so gracious. It's been wonderful to be able to, as I say, support ministries and stuff. And and that's a new ambition to help orphanages as well and things like that.
Wonderful. Well, Martin, this is fantastic. We could keep talking to you for a long time. I have to say, you're one of the most extraordinary people I know. You've lived several lives for most people: professional musician, professional business person, store owner. You make money, which is a great thing, and all done through a lifestyle of just hearing God and obeying, just obedience. For that reason, I kind of have to agree with you. You probably are a zealot. Now, when you said zealot, in my mind, I went to John the Baptist, but your hair is not nearly as unruly as I expected. But I've met your son, and I saw when I first met your son, David, man, he had a mane. It was fantastic. So maybe that was it.
Well, you can actually see me playing the clarinet on YouTube. If you put in Martin Powell and New English Orchestra, and as Rick Joyner says, he's got hair.
I am going to do that today, just so you're aware. And I think our listeners should too. Ian, anything you want to say as we're wrapping up?
No, this is fabulous. There's so much stuff we never got to, but thank you for sharing today. It's just absolutely inspirational, encouraging. I'm sure it's fuel into people's spirit as they listen to you today, Martin. Thank you so much for coming. Always enjoy hanging out with you. Of course, you had the chance earlier this week to do that too, so that was really good. But thank you for coming to our podcast. Thank you for being a solutionary. We absolutely love you and love what you do.
And let me end on that as well, because I actually love what you're doing for the kingdom, bringing kingdom people together and doing something rather than talking about it.
That's how we're defining solutionary. So thank you so much, Martin. Ian, always good to be with you. And thank you for listening again this week to Kingdomize, a podcast. We'll be back next week with another great guest. Share this, get it at other people. People need to be inspired and see what a life of obedience as a solutionary looks like. And so go ahead and do that. Have a great week. We'll see you next week on Kingdomize, the podcast. Thanks for joining us today on Kingdomize, the podcast. Let's keep the discussion going throughout the week on our socials or on our website, kingdomizeglobal.com. Contact us today to see how we can walk together to see more of God's kingdom in your city as it is in heaven.